So I did want to ask your take on Tesla selling the Chinese-made EVs in Canada.
Oh yeah, sure.
That's sort of controversial for some folks. I have my take on it, but I wanted to get your thoughts on them importing them from China rather than the U.S.
Yeah, that's a very interesting one. That's one that I'm also curious about. So if I think through the business decision, there has to be a cost factor there, right? So the Chinese made Model 3s, from what I've seen from the research, the quality of those cars is no worse than than any other factory that they're building them in. If anything, they might be better than the Fremont made stuff potentially. That's some of the rumor stuff that I'm hearing.
That's what
the
I
Berlin ones might be up there with the same quality, but they're definitely well made cars. Now the only variable there is that they're LFP battery, which is the lithium iron phosphate battery versus the cobalt based one that's built in the States until they move over to the lithium. To the LFP for the other models probably over time, but that's really the only major difference, is that it's a different battery chemistry. It will have slightly less range in the winter months versus the cobalt one, but it can also be charged to 100% of the time with zero battery degradation. So you kind of get that miss back with the LFP battery. And so for me, it's just going to be I think Tesla's like, okay, so we have a Chinese factory that's cranking out over 1 million cars per year now. They have a very good labor there that's doing so at a reasonable cost, very efficient. That factory is like very famous for just being the most efficient factory out there for Tesla. And so putting those cars on a boat and sending them to Canada with the labor costs they have and the material costs they have there was probably cheaper, surprisingly, probably not surprisingly, than using California labor and shipping those cars out of that factory with their first generation Model Y lines, right? So from that perspective, Tesla's probably making a little bit more money shipping it out of China. But from a quality perspective, personally, I wouldn't worry about it one bit. Because if anything, those Chinese Model Ys are going to be some of the best Model Ys you can buy. In my opinion.
I agree. And J-Mac hit it on the head too here. It's a great move. It allows Tesla to use U.S.-made components in the U.S. for the rebates. And that's kind of what my take on it was. I had the same gut reaction that, every red-blooded American has about it. Like, hey, why are you? But then I go, you know what? It allows U.S.-made vehicles to be sold in the US, and if they were shipping them off to everywhere else, we'd have a shortage issue. Right now, especially like Model Y, that's the best-selling vehicle in the world. You need the vehicles available everywhere,
right?
So and Outsider says, when was the last time they revamped one of their models? Continuously. Actually, the last 2020, the last half of that year, vehicle is different than my vehicle. First, they had the blackout, and then there was an interior change. But of course, now you have Project Highland coming out very soon. I don't know what your guess on the timeline is. My guess was July or August.
That sounds right. Yeah, that sounds right. Yeah, my comment to Outsider Reviews, like the changes are small most of the time and then large less of the time. But they are, they are releasing things like, say, some trim stuff gets changed. That's minor, but generally an automaker will wait for a model year to do that. Tesla's like, just put it in, just go. We got the new trim in, put it on, let's go. So that's how they're changing. The Highland project. So I know Elon Musk is in China right now. And one of the rumors was that the Shanghai factory has been working on a transition over to the Highland Model 3 out of China. And so he may be there to check on the progress, plus do whatever else he needs to do there with the Chinese government and local suppliers and stuff. So he's doing a lot of that stuff. I think the Highland timing seems correct for the third or fourth. Hi, he's part of my community, by the way. He's awesome. It's third quarter third quarter seems correct. I'd probably say like maybe closer to September, maybe potentially, because they'll probably want to put that change into Fremont as well. And Fremont seems like they just shut down the lines recently, or they're planning on shutting the lines recently. I can't remember exactly where they are, but Shanghai is much further along with that. And Highland, from my perspective, I mean, it's definitely going to be a refresh for sure. That's going to make the car probably look different, because that look is 7 years old now, maybe going on 8 years old. And so it would make sense to do a little bit different look, like how they done the Model S and the Model X. They've sort of, nipped and tucked the sort of the curves, and they've changed the headlights and stuff like that, and changed interior. So Model 3 is probably due for that. But it's going to be, and they'll probably remove a couple $1,000s of cost out of that car, and try to create better differentiation between it and the Model Y and the upcoming compact car, so that the Model 3 is not in this no man's land, where it's sort of the one of the initial questions you brought up around why would anyone buy a Y or an X or a 3 when the compact car is released. I think the Model 3 could be most impacted by that, unless they are able to better differentiate that versus the Y and the compact. So that's what I think Highland's going to be.
Yeah, and have you seen the picture? I'm sure you've seen the pictures of the leaked, and the headlights, which are very Roadster-esque. I think
they are
headlights, and then
if it's real,
assuming it's real.
Yeah,
I mean, it wasn't photoshopped from everything we see, but but we don't know what it ends up being. We have people who may or may not be in the chat right now who don't think the Cybertruck is real or coming.
Okay, so I've seen it.
I know you actually got to see it in person, and I hear it's much bigger than it seems in pictures.
It is. Yeah, the two-dimensional like sort of look of it in pictures, because it looks like a triangle on wheels, right? It has a very weird look in pictures, and it's super polarizing. But in person, man, that thing is, the size of it really puts into perspective just how ridiculously awesome, in my opinion, it looks freaking incredible. It's so different. So, and I have a video of it on my channel. I was able to, when I was there for the shareholders meeting, I took a video of it, and I try my best. My dogs are even excited about the Cybertruck, bro. I try to capture really the proportions and the angles as best as I can, because it really is a much larger car than most people think. It's literally an F-150. That's how big it is. It's like an F-150. I think
it's a little bit longer than an F-150.
Couple inches longer. Yeah. That's correct. I think about as wide as an F-150, and it's going to have like a Raptor stance, because the front wheels are super close to the front of the car to get really good clearance, and you're going to have adjustable suspension, so it's going to be able to rise and fall. And those like shocks are gigantic in there, dude. Like they're so freaking big. So yeah, I would highly recommend that. I'm gonna. I really predict that when this thing is seen in person and starts hitting the roads, no, it won't weigh nearly as. It'd probably weigh like an F-150. Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say. You think less? I was gonna say probably. 55 to 6,000. I would think. Yeah, that was my.
Yeah, it's going to be nowhere near. I mean, the Hummer is the most ridiculously inefficient EV ever built, which I kind of love it for that, because it's so ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, it is over the top. It is the over the top one.
Yeah,
I can't see Tesla ever making something as inefficient as that. And I think that's what a lot of people who sort of criticize the Cybertruck and that, like, they seem to miss that point, which is the most efficient EVs in the world are almost all Tesla, except for the Lucid. Which does a great job.
Yes.
But otherwise, they're all Teslas, and Tesla would never make something so inefficient as that.
No, because it's expensive, right? I mean, if you have to lug around 9,000 pounds of weight, it's like, the bigger the battery is, the more batteries you need. That's like what's crazy about the battery equation, because it's 100% driven by the size of the vehicle. And so the rest of the car has to be as light as humanly possible, so that battery doesn't have a lot to carry along. And that's where Tesla is. They're sort of masters at this. It's at figuring out how to make the rest of the car as light and as stiff and as sort of reliable as possible so that the battery doesn't have that extra weight to carry around. Plus the battery itself, the shells, they use the most advanced materials possible. The castings that they use for the front and the rear and the battery pack are designed to remove as many parts as possible so you can make it as light as you can, so on and so forth. So the Cybertruck would be a lot lighter than most people realize, but it's like it looks like it's 10,000 pounds. But I bet you it's going to drive like it's going to feel like a 3,000 pound car.
Well, especially with all-wheel steering, right? That's going to help a lot.
Low center of gravity too.
Yeah. Happy Hippo says, do you think there will be a Model Y refresh? It's called Project Juniper, right?
Something like that.
Yeah. Jupiter. I think it's Juniper.
It's going to be a couple years
but
out.
It'll be a while. Yeah, it'll be a while still. Yeah, definitely.